Righty. This is weird working out of this classroom. It's bringing back memories from my first year.
Send a text, right? Saying where we are.
Yeah, I put in the announcements. I just didn't at everyone, and hopefully people will see it. Yeah. It or no, over the wire nets. That's what I'm gonna do.
Oh, the sweater orders, are they UNBCTF or are they going to be the names that we figure out?
That is a very good question. I will have to. I don't know. We'll have to figure that one out.
We're figuring out names today.
I think so. Maybe.
So Grace.
That makes sense.
So like unofficial?
Change our name in all the
I mean,
competitions. That's where it
yeah.
matters.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for cyber side, we're good. I guess we could just. I don't know. I don't know if we've given a team name. Have we? It could be the last time we compete as UNBCTF too. That's the other thing. Just gonna open up Discord and Twitch. Oh, we have 2 viewers. Excellent. And 23 followers. Look at us go. We're on that path to becoming a Twitch affiliate, I believe. Next thing you know, we're going to start getting subs. I don't even think I have that set up though. So, yeah, we need a, you know what? That's what we need next is a graphic design team for UNBCTF. Hey, how's it going? I'm all right, thank you. Ooh. Welcome. Good, how are you? That's all good. It's just the other classrooms had like people in them, and we technically, I guess, we aren't supposed to use classrooms, I guess. So I didn't feel like, hey, we can just go in and we don't want to go in and just try and commandeer a classroom. Just like, hey, get out of here. Or I guess that's the wrong approach. We want more people, so that's right. You're here now. You have to stay and learn web security and then how to play CTFs. All right. I guess kick things off. Oh, excellent. It switched right over. That's perfect. No, wrong desktop. Whoops. Oh, Micah, the tabs I had open last time from when I was like searching up just like different things I could do when I was doing bro science. Like when I was doing bro science when we were up in like what was that? Like headrest.
Yeah.
And it just all open and I was like, oh, I completely forgot. Yeah.
Take a minute to like
Start up?
yeah.
No, it was just It's just the browser. It's just like, oh, hey, you had all these tabs open from when you were last doing Hack the Box. Like, here they are again. And I was like, well, this is great, but I'm not doing Hack the Box right now. Oh, that's good. I don't know. Yeah, unless you're doing a lot. Oh, right. Not a six. And then actually here, I guess before I get started, we'll just wait another minute for people to join and then kind of kick things off. All right. Oh, that would have been 2 weeks ago because I think last week was reading week, and then before that, it was the 27th, I think, of February was our last session. Maybe, maybe was that like when the last time we did this was the 27th of February? Maybe. Okay, yeah. Because I was looking at it and I was like, did I forget to upload one of the videos to Twit or to YouTube? And I was like, huh. I was like, it's been a long time since we've done one. You might be right. I think it was the 24th, not the 27th. Okay, yeah, so it was the 24th, you're right. Thank you, Micah. I think I uploaded that to YouTube. I'm not sure. We might only have 3 videos on YouTube. I can't remember. Yeah. Oh no. So oh yeah. Yeah. Was that Magpie? Was that Magpie or which CTF was that? Okay. So that's the University of Calgary. Shout out to them. Those are my folks. Great people. That's where I started out. Um, oh, what was I gonna do? Oh, I was gonna show. So usually, like, there's not if there is a limit imposed on like CTF's teams, people just share kind of one account and they'll all be signed in and then submit. An example, as I showed Stephen and Micah, and I can't remember if you were around Larissa for it, but there's a very, very, very talented CTF team called Dice CTF. They also run their own CTF, or sorry, Dice Gang. My apologies. They go by the name Dice Gang. Uh, and occasionally they'll compete in CTFs with, I think it's something like 40 people, but they are ridiculously talented. So I don't know. For anyone online, we'll get started in a second. I'm just showcasing like kind of the sizes of CTF teams and how it can vary. So these guys went to Black Hat over. I think this was the Middle East and Africa session that happened. They flew over to there and won whatever I think SAR 300,000 is, whatever the equivalent of that is in Canadian dollars. Um, they won that. I think they placed third place. Oh no, that was their first place finish in Black Hat. So very ridiculously talented group. Black Hat is one of the top conferences in the world for just hacking in general. There's lots of talks that go on there. People will just kind of showcase either new techniques or things they've discovered in terms of hacking. Another example is I think it's, oh yeah, this is down here. So DEF CON, this is arguably the most famous CTF on the planet and also just the most famous conference on the planet. Um, you can see right here, they have a massive team. I think this was the merger of 2 teams, maybe, or maybe it was just their team, but they they won the DEF CON CTF. DEF CON is like the biggest event. It happens in, I think, Las Vegas every single year around like May, August. Um, and it's known as Hacker Summer Camp or Adult Hacker Summer Camp. So people from all over the world will flock to the same spot, Las Vegas, Nevada, in the United States, and it's just a massive conference that goes on for like 4 days. There's everything from like talks to I don't know, CTFs to just kind of like demos of different, I guess, techniques and things people have learned. Um, it's really cool, but you can see here, there's not really a limit to CTF team sizes. And if there is, people just use the same account. Like, look at this. There's, I think, something like almost 30 people in this photo. So as you can see, if there is a limit, we will just go under like the same kind of team, I guess, or same account. Anyways, welcome back to, I guess, the club here in tonight's session. We'll be looking at web security and then moving on from it. We'll just be kind of wrapping it up tonight, going over the last little bit of attacks and stuff like that. Just so that if you are interested, you can, I don't know, I'll drop some resources so that if you are interested in learning web security more, you can kind of branch into that and, maybe pick it up. Who knows? Uh, Otherwise, we'll be wrapping it up, and then I guess I'll be doing just a quick little poll afterwards to see, what the general consensus is, like in terms of what topic we want to learn next. Um, just because I don't know, in the past I've gone in like straight into reverse engineering from web, which I think was a bit of a jump, but we'll see. I don't know, we'll see what people want to learn next. That's kind of the biggest thing. Um, it's just making sure that it's like, something that everybody wants to do, and it's not just like some kind of defined pathway I've already set up. Yeah. And then, after I have to leave at 7 o'clock. The stream will end, but I think we're going to continue playing like either CTFs, either Pico CTF, or I think there's like two CTFs going on right now. One by the University of Michigan and another by the University of Victoria over in BC. Um, so it'll be great. I don't know. I think we'll continue that on in the Discord. We'll see. But we'll just yes, I can. Um, I'll just pull it up just in case here too. But so we are now taking sweater orders. That's right. We have merch. We're taking sweater orders until I think it is March 28th. Yeah. Yeah. And if you go ahead in the Discord here, I'll just load it quickly, and you can see um, that we left a link there, and there's I think options for you to choose from in terms of like the hoodie that you want, and is it sizes? Yeah. I'll post a picture. All right, so anyone who's in person gets to kind of get a quick demo of what it looks like. Um, so, I might have to sign in. I hope I don't. But there's a form over in the announcements channel. It says, we'll be collecting sweater orders until March 28th. You can place your order here, and then there's a link to the page. I think you have to you have to sign in with your UNB account, but to get like access to the form. But after that, you'll be good, and then you can place your order. Oops. Looked like I was trying to quit Vim there. Yeah. So if anyone online, I guess, has any questions, I don't know, pop them in the chat or on Discord, and I'll do my best to answer. But where is it? I think it's in general. The password, I'll just paste it again here once I find it. But the password for Natus 6 to go on to 7 was pasted in there from whenever we last worked on this. I think this was the 24th, as we briefly mentioned earlier. Oh no, it was above that. Yeah. There it is. Okay, so credentials here, if anyone's online, or just if you can see it in person, maybe. If you scroll up, it's Natus 6 and then that nice long password. I'll just copy and paste it so nobody has to go searching for it. And it'll be the first message in general in Discord. There. And the link to Natus was natus6.overthewire.org, I think. I could be wrong. I can't remember. I'm going to quickly look at it. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So use those credentials to log into Natus 6. Oops. It gave a bad URL there. There. So you can use those credentials to go and log into Natus number 6. Just copy the password, and I think it'll work. It doesn't. I think I have to start back at Natus 1 all the way over again, and oh dear, bad keyboard. I'll have to start at Natus 1 and work from there. So really hoping they haven't changed the passwords on us. All right. We'll log in here quickly. Natus 6, there's the password. And oh, okay, thank God. They haven't changed the passwords. We're good. We're in. We're in. So I know I rushed through it last time when we were doing this, but just in case you guys kind of remember, I'll zoom in. But we have an import form here. It says, input the secret, and then a button that says submit query. So there's a couple things we could do right off the bat. We also notice we have a view source code button, which is, something we always want to do. If we have the source code, I'm just going to go back. If we have the source code, we'll use it. It'd be stupid not to use it. So we can just kind of look at it and we see, okay, it's PHP. We see there's a bit of HTML stuff. There's, nothing interesting up here. But then we see, okay, there's, some PHP code here, the form down here for submitting stuff. So, maybe we'll take a look at this again in a second and we'll kind of figure out how it works. We just see there's an include here. It says includes/secret. And then we see, if the post parameters set and it's called submit, it'll check to see if it's equal to, or sorry, on submit, if the post parameter is set, if secret is equal to, the value that we put in the parameter secret, it'll say access granted, and then it'll give us the password. Otherwise, it just tells us, hey, wrong secret. So we can go ahead and test that out over here. We'll just say like, hey, what happens if I type AAA, which I think is exactly, that's exactly what I did last time. We just get, wrong secret because that's not the answer. So right off the bat, just looking at the code here, does anyone have any ideas about, maybe what we can do? We see there's an include and, a directory and a file. And then, we have the code that checks to see if the input we supplied is, if it matches. So do we have any ideas about what we can do? I know I kind of went over this last session, so if you remember, that's great. And just go ahead. You can, I don't know, maybe guide us here and tell us what we're supposed to do. Ideas? Anyone? We have a directory and a file that's kind of specified here. Hint is think back to like the first two kind of, I think it was, or the second and third levels where, we were looking at, maybe open directories and stuff like that. Maybe it's the same here. Any ideas about what we could do? Yeah, that's definitely something we could try. So that's a good suggestion, in case anyone online didn't hear that, it's what happens if we just, paste this into the URL over here? Like what happens if we try and visit that page or, view that file? So we go ahead and paste that in any second now. There we go. We just get a blank page, but, sometimes that can be misleading. We think, oh, there's nothing there. Maybe there's some HTML there and it just hasn't been rendered. So it's always important to go and view the source. And we see, oh, there's some variable there. This is PHP code. And it's called secret. If we look back over at the source code here, we see, oh, there's some sort of comparison after this file is included. And it says, hey, secret is equal to this, where it checks the input we give it. And then it gives us the password. So we think, okay, let's try this. Maybe that's the secret. Maybe we'll get the password to the next level. So if I go and put that in, that nice little string of characters, we get, oh, there's the password for the next level. Awesome. So that was a great idea. Thank you. I'll just copy that and then paste it over in the Discord in case anyone doesn't have it. Out of 7. Oops, I forgot to. Just in case anyone doesn't have it, the password for Natus7 is over in the chat. That's great. So we solved Natus6. Just to kind of reiterate, the vulnerability here. When we were looking at the source code, we saw that there's a file that's being included in the code where kind of like the secrets or like certain variables are defined. So it's not accessible. If someone was to kind of view the source for this application, they wouldn't just see like a direct comparison between a string and then the input. This is generally good practice where it's called like using environment variables sometimes, or just hiding your secrets elsewhere, and they're not just right immediately out in front of you, where someone could potentially just see them if they were able to view the source code, or leak them somehow through another vulnerability. So that's something we always want to check for is, we kind of want to have intuition of whenever we see a path or something, a path to a file, let's always check to see if we can access that file, or, maybe that directory is open and we can access other files type of thing. So this kind of plays into, I think, the first two sessions we did, or the first session on web security we did, first two levels of Natus, where it was like open files and open directories that you shouldn't normally have access to, but in this case we did. Believe it or not, it's a very common vulnerability that you'll see in large organizations where there's some sort of data that the organization is responsible for looking after, and sometimes there's a lot to deal with, and maybe they're short staffed. It's hard to keep track of if you've actually properly secured anything or everything. Sorry. So there are leakages that kind of happen like that, where files that should definitely not be publicly exposed are exposed publicly. An example I can give of that is just kind of it's a quick little story. Back when I was in high school, I think I was in grade 11 or 12. Uh, I was trying to work from home during COVID and like access some school resources for one of my classes, and I just Googled like if my school district had a VPN, so I could connect to the resources within my school and use like some of the software they had. I think it was like Fusion 360 is what I was trying to get a hold of, and like I Googled it, and unfortunately for them, they used Microsoft SharePoint, which is, it's also what UNB uses to run like the UNB cloud site or whatever it's called, like their intranet. Um, there was a document there, and because I put, I think it was like my school's name or my school district name and then the word VPN, the document came up, and it was a document that contained every single password and account or just credentials in general for anything they used in terms of like system administration. And I was sitting there and I was like, you're kidding me. Like, this is just sitting here, like facing the internet. Anyone could Google for this and find it. And I was like, okay, well, maybe this is old. There's no way the credentials are like actually valid here. I went and saw that they had a credentials for, I think it was like D2L, and I went and used those and logged in. And then sure enough, I was overseeing the entire kind of administration section of D2L for my my high school, and I was like, oh my god, I could change my grades. There's a lot of bad that could come out of this. So the first thing I did is I went and reported it to the head of, like, I think it was just IT within my school district, and I was like, hey, uh, I found this online. Please don't be mad. I didn't do anything with any of the credentials I found here, but this is online and it's facing the world. You guys should definitely look into this and change all your passwords. And the sad part was some of the passwords they used were literally just the word password, or it was a variation of it like this. Oh, actually, I don't think that's going to show up great. Let me do this. It was literally spelt, oh, it was spelt this. Yeah, that was the password they were using to secure a lot of critical infrastructure, was literally just password, but an at symbol instead of an A. And sometimes I saw this, there was a one, sometimes there was an exclamation mark. It's stuff like that. So, I went and responsibly disclosed it. I didn't do anything nefarious. I didn't change my grades. I didn't log in and mess up their Active Directory for all the students and teachers and just anything else they had set up. But there was a lot of critical information. So it just kind of shows you that, although this seems like a super easy vulnerability and it's just like, oh, like I could do this in my sleep, or like, this is something that no company would ever have happen to them. It is something that does happen because lots of places are either understaffed or they have so much to look after. It's so hard to keep track of all your assets and resources and making sure that everything is properly secured. Um, so yeah, it's just something to keep in mind. The next two concepts I guess we'll kind of go over are, I think, in Bandit 7, or sorry, Natus 7, which I forget off the top of my head what it was, but I know it was something I wanted to talk about today. So we'll go ahead and log in with that. The credentials are in Discord in case you didn't solve the challenge or you just kind of want to follow along and don't necessarily, I guess, have any inclination into trying the challenges today, which is, it's okay. That, or if you're following online and or watching this at a later date, the stuff or the credentials are in Discord, just so you don't have to start over from scratch and solve everything from like the first kind of challenge over. So we log into Natus 7 here and we see, okay, there's two links, home and about. And it says hint. Oh, we go and view the source just because, there's nothing promising right off the bat here on the web page. There's nothing we can really click other than home, which just takes us to home. And it says this is the front page. And then we have about. We click about, we see this is the about page. So again, these aren't really useful for us. So always check the source. We go ahead and look at this and we see, oh, the password for the web user natus8 is an etsy natus underscore webpass / natus8. That's a hint. So then all of a sudden, we kind of start to notice like, hey, let's look at the URL for a second. This is saying, hey, there's some parameter called page and it's taking user specified input. That's kind of, we can kind of infer just from the name there that, oh, maybe this is, directing us to a page, or, some file within the web directory. So then we kind of have to start thinking and get creative. Like, what if, we could do some sort of LFI or directory traversal here? So what if we could read files that, aren't in the web directory and that we shouldn't normally have access to? Maybe maybe the web developer didn't put in proper protections. So go back over to the source code here. We get a hint and we see, hey, the password for the next user is in this directory and this location. So what if we just copied that and pasted it in? I want everyone to go ahead and try it and see what happens first before I do it here. What if you go ahead and put, some other path on the machine? What happens if you specify some sort of file instead of a, actually that's the other thing, is it has to be a file that can open. It won't be a directory. You can't just like do ls type of thing. There's no command injection here. But you remember from the last session we had when I opened up those web challenges, we talked about LFI. So what if you could, kind of include a file locally, or I guess in this case it's directory traversal actually. You're moving outside of a file or moving outside of a directory. No. This is LFI. This is LFI. Never mind. Excuse me. I was confused. I think, would you classify this as LFI, like local file inclusion? It's like, yeah. Well, I think maybe you could do, if you did like // to get to Etsy, I think you could. call that directory traversal. Yeah, we'll see. Anyways, so I've given just kind of a quick moment to play around with it. We saw in the source code there was the hint there of maybe just copying and pasting uh, that hint or that path it gave us. So if we go ahead and try that, we get, oh, look at that. It loaded the password for us right there. Awesome. I'll go over to why this works in a second, or just kind of how this works in general. It's 8. Password again, or the credentials again are in Discord just in case. Oh, that's awesome. Did you put up the Wolf CTF event there? Okay, yeah. So that's another one thing is University of Victoria. They're located in BC, and I think they go by the name Vikes for like all their athletic teams and just in general. I think they're on I've forgotten where they are actually. Oh no, it is in Victoria. Okay, okay, okay. That makes sense. It's called Victoria. They have a beautiful campus though, if anyone's ever been there. It's really beautiful in the fall, especially when the colors are just kind of out and stuff like that. But they go by, I think it is the Vikes on CTF time. It might just be U Vike. I can't remember. Um, we'll go ahead and just take a quick look, but I think those are the two CTFs. Oh yeah, Vike CTF, that's what it is. So as you can see, it's already started. There's 77 teams playing. And you can kind of read the description here. I'll zoom in just so people can see. But they also go by the name pencil testers, which is a play on the word pen tester or penetration tester. If you don't know what that is, it's just kind of like a penetration tester is just someone who's contracted to assess the security of some sort of uh, resource, computer resource is what we'll call it for either some corporation or organization in general. Uh, anyways, that's beyond the point. So VikeSec is University of Victoria's cybersecurity club. The challenges are across pretty much all the categories that are standard, except they also have included cloud, which is something that more and more people are moving towards now, just because cloud security is very popular. It's kind of hard to do in terms of a CTF. You have to spin up your own like Amazon Web Services instance, and then I think it is like you can do things like GCP, so Google Cloud Platform, or maybe even Microsoft Azure or Azure. I can't remember how it's pronounced, but stuff like that, cloud platforms, and just working on like kind of like a enterprise cloud security. That's what we'll call it, enterprise cloud security. Yeah. So I think it's either this one or Pico CTF that people will be going over after I'm gone here and the stream is ended. But the links are in the Discord, or you can just go into CTF time and I think it's listed under, oh no, it's not under upcoming because it's happening right now. You just click on CTFs or visit the main like homepage. It'll be there. Oh yeah, there it is. Now running. Thank you, Grace. Awesome. So yeah. You can also see how many teams are participating in each CTF. Vike has 77. University of Michigan here, which is Wolf CTF, they have 109 teams. It also shows you how long the CTF lasts for, um, which in this case, this one lasts for 1 day and 18 hours. The other one lasts for a day and 22. I think LVR Cat and Mouse, they might have put that incorrectly. I don't think it's only an hour, although it could be. I don't know. You would be correct because it started at, oh wait, no, it's only a 3 hour CTF. Just looking at the times there in UTC, it starts at 20. or what is that, 8 o'clock? Yeah, it starts at 8 o'clock and then goes to 11. So that's a 3 hour CTF. That's ridiculous. I don't know who has the time to solve challenges in 3 hours, but good for you. Um, yeah, I think that also, I don't know, that might be a qualifier or something like that for another competition or not. Locket Vesp range. What is that? Thank you. Good catch. All right. I don't know what this is. This almost looks like a blog. I don't know if this is a company. Yeah. Okay. This looks like a company, but I don't know. We'll skip past this. Anyways, the password for the next level is there. Go ahead and copy it, and we'll try Natus 8. I think we're gonna end off at Natus 9, and then I'm just gonna go over a couple more kind of web-related techniques, I guess, for security, and then we'll move on to, I guess, the CTF because I think I'll be gone by then. Oh, I accidentally clicked out of my VM, and it did not like it. There. So again, the credentials. Oops, I forgot the 8. Again, the credentials are in Discord. If you don't have them, just go ahead and copy them. All right. So this, we've seen this before. This looks like Natus 6 again. Although hopefully it's not as simple as Natus 6. We don't want everything to always be simple. We want the challenge. That's the part of this. So now this is interesting. This, from what we've learned last time, the HTML content that's up here, useless. We don't really want to pay attention to that necessarily because that's something we could have viewed elsewhere. Same with down here, we kind of see, okay, the HTML code, that's pretty much useless. This is the code we want right here, the PHP code. So we see we have something here that says encoded secret, and then it looks like some sort of hex string. We see there's some kind of function here called encode secret, does a couple operations, which we'll dive into in a second. And then we can see, oh, here's the code that we're kind of familiar with from last time. We see, if array key exists, which just means like on submit, if this is a post request, you know, it'll take the parameter called secret and check to see if the encoded form of that is equal to the encoded secret, and then it'll give us the password. So we can see, okay, this is similar to the previous level, like with Natus 6. We kind of have an idea of what's going to happen here. We have some sort of string that we have to figure out, what the plain text might be, or what the decoded form is. And then if we pass that in and it matches the encoded version, then we get the password. So we can see here within this function in PHP, we have a whole bunch of different functions inside of here. We have something called base64 encode, then string reverse or strrev, which I don't know. A lot of functions, thankfully, are named kind of to give you an idea of what they're meant to do. So we can see things are base64 encoded, they're reversed, and then they're converted to hex. So that's interesting. So that makes sense though, because we see, hey, we have a hex string here. Maybe, just maybe, if we go and try and like decode this into ASCII, which we went over, ASCII is like the reason we have text like this. I guess nowadays it's called Unicode, but ASCII, if we go and convert this back into ASCII, maybe we can undo some of the operations that have been done here, like reversing the string and then decoding it from base 64. So that's just a thought. Does anyone have any suggestions about how we could start first? Because this kind of plays into like the mindset of being able to reverse engineer things. We know there's a process that's been done here to transform some sort of text into this string over here. Now we just have to kind of really focus and understand what's happened and how we can undo it. Does anyone have any suggestions about what the first thing we would do to this hex string is? Yes. So if anyone didn't kind of pick up how we might do that, we look at this bin to hex function, you might think, okay, well, how the hell would I know to convert that? If you just Google bin to hex, I forgot to put the word PHP, but thankfully it's the first result. PHP, do you want to load? Thank you. We can see, oh, great, we have the manual for this function, and it says convert binary data into a hexadecimal representation. Okay, that sounds pretty straightforward. So we see it says, hey, it returns an ASCII string containing the hexadecimal representation of, the string you passed as input. This conversion is done bytewise within all the high nibble first. You don't need to worry about whatever that means. You just need to know, okay, we have hexadecimal, and we need to convert it back into ASCII. How might one do that? Well, it's as simple as Googling for hexadecimal, or you could just put hex to ASCII. For me, I already have it just kind of saved because I've used it so often. Although I think this is ASCII to hex. I'm gonna have to reverse this actually. Whoops. There it is, text. So Rapid Tables is a great site for just quick tools like this. You can kind of see here, okay, it's asking us input your text for the hex and it'll give you the ASCII output. So if I go and put that in there, we get, oh, this is weird. We get some sort of, we'll call it binary data, but really it's just ASCII. It's just text. So we say, okay, this is, data that's still in some kind of encoded form. So let's go back and take a look here at what else happens after you convert it to hex. We have something called strrev. As I said, we might be able to infer just from the naming convention, that stands for string reverse. So once again, we'll just Google strrev PHP. And, first result, again, we've got the PHP documentation and it says, hey, this is called string reverse, reverse a string. Awesome. So it's exactly what we thought it was doing. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. One way is with Python. There's just quick and, it's quick and kind of dirty way to do it to reverse the string. There's other ways you can do it. It's just by, searching up like string reverser online. You don't have kind of the programming skills or knowledge of how to reverse a string, that's okay. The other way you could do it, although I really don't recommend it, is doing it by hand. Please, for the love of God, just don't copy it out by hand and do it backwards because you're prone to making mistakes. So we can see here, awesome. We have, something online called string reverser. So let's go and paste that. And sure enough, look at that. It gave us the reverse string. Awesome. So, we could go and copy that. But I just want to quickly take a look at another way to do this. So with Python, it's really helpful to know kind of like a programming language, just so you could do something quickly like this, or just some kind of scripting language, honestly. I think there might be a command line or some kind of command you can use in Bash to reverse a string, although it's not coming to me off the top of my head. But in Python, there's a couple ways you can do it, although the easiest is, just putting it in a string. And then I think it's doing, or you could say A is equal to, we'll just call this A. A is equal to this string. And then you could say A minus 1. I think that's 2 colons. Thank you for the correction, Stephen. So, this might look a little funky. I'll explain what this is doing in a second. But then we can see, oh, awesome. It reversed the string for us. So Python, thankfully, has the ability to interpret strings or kind of mess around with characters quite easily. If you have a group of characters, again, like, let's say B is equal to AAA and then the letter B. We can just say, hey, I want to access, I think it is, did you just say 3? I can't remember how this works. It's been a while since I've used Python, actually. I'm kind of caught here. Just access individual. Okay, yeah, so you can. You could say, hey, I want to access an individual character of, this string. So we could say, I want to access the element at the third indice. So we start at 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, awesome. The third kind of character is an A, or the third element is an A. But if we did 4, we get B. And that makes sense because arrays, just in case anyone doesn't remember, start at 0. So the string would go 0, 1, 2, 3, and then 4 would be the last element here, 4, which would be B, which is why we got this back. Some neat little quirks about Python are you can put -1, for instance, and we see, well, why does that work? This gives us the last element of the array, basically. So in Python, you can use syntax like that, where you can do -1, and that'll just tell it, hey, take the length -1, and it'll give you the last element. So now this kind of makes us wonder, what are these 2 colons for? Why does this work the way it does? Why did it reverse that string? I think, Steven, you might have to help me out here. I can only remember what happens if you put 1 colon, but I think 2 tells it to start from the very end and then just traverse over the string and put it out as it reads it. Right. Okay. So just in case anyone online didn't hear that, or if you're watching this at a later date, there's some neat little quirks with Python. You could do something like this. Oops, not the equal sign. You could just say, hey, I want to start at 1 and then print out everything to -1. And I think that would give you from the end to, oh, I see how that works. Okay, yeah, that's why. It's because I put the -1, it printed it out backwards. But let's just try this. Let's go 3. Yeah, that makes sense. Wait, no, that doesn't make sense. CM13. I think I can't remember. I'd have to look this up. I think you're right. It might just skip it by intervals. It might just go like oh yeah, so that would skip it by interval. So in this case, when we put it as just colon -1, this just tells it start from the back and print everything out. So that's a quick little dirty way to reverse the string in Python, and we get the proper base64 encoded string that we're looking for. I think you could also do something like 0, and that would just print it out normally. Yeah. So this just says start at the indice 0 and skip over no intervals. Whereas if I put 0 and then 3, we would get, it starts at 0 and then skips to every third element, basically. If that makes, or it starts at the end and then, it starts at the beginning and then skips to every third element, if that makes sense. So we can see that would be 1, 2, 3, which is why we got C. Another 1, 2, 3 makes M. 1, 2, 3 makes L, and so on. So now that we kind of understand that and we're able to move forward, you could have also just used the reverse string online. We have this text here. We'll go ahead and copy that. And we see the last thing here is it says base64 encode. Okay. So just in case, we don't know what that is, let's just Google PHP base64 encode. I spelled encode wrong. There we go. So we can see, oh, awesome. It just tells us, hey, this encodes the given string with base64. Now we kind of ask, what the hell is base64? Why do we care what this is? So base64, we'll just look at Wikipedia. It says, in computer programming, base64 is a group of binary to text encoding schemes that represent binary data in sequences of 24 bits. All right, that sounds like complete jargon. What does that even mean? If we go ahead and take a look at, maybe some other resources like Mozilla, aka the godfather of web documentation, basically. We go ahead and take a look at this and it says, oh, it's the same thing. It's binary to text encoding. But down here, we see base64 encoding schemes are commonly used when there's a need to encode binary data that needs to be stored and transferred over media that are designed to deal with ASCII. So it's, as we can see next, it says this is to ensure that the data remains intact without modification during transport. So a good example of this, if you're kind of confused, would just be if we're in a bash shell right here, and I just typed semicolon. To bash, that means something. That means, hey, execute the statement before and after the semicolon. If I type an and symbol, it might just say, hey, there's an error. You didn't give me anything to parse on either side of this and symbol. You didn't just say like, hey, do something on either, do the things on either side of, or evaluate, kind of the statements on either side of this expression here. It's the same kind of concept with, web applications. Maybe, they're designed to handle certain characters a certain way. So if you gave it like, a forward slash, that might be telling it, hey, I want to go and visit a certain web directory or a certain path on this web server. But, maybe you just want to include a slash. We can use base64 to kind of encode it. So it's not interpreted either by your browser or by the web application in an unintended or kind of, nasty way. But now that we have that base64 encoded text, there's a couple ways we can do this. We could just go ahead and Google base64 decode, which you can see right there, first result. Or in your terminal, there's a built-in command. If you don't actually have access to a web browser, there's a command called base64. And you can see, oh, it hung because it was expecting input. So let's go and do man base64 to see how this works. It says base64. Base64 encode and decode data and print to standard output. So print out onto your terminal. We want to look at the description to see, if there's any options that kind of stand out to us and what we want. So it says base64 decode or encode a file, standard input to standard output. With no file or when file is specified, it'll read as standard input. The mandatory arguments to long options, we can just ignore that. But so essentially when we read this, we kind of get, okay, so if I just pass the data over to it, it'll encode it. But we don't want that. We already have an encoded form of base64. So what if we, look for that decode option? Thankfully for us, it's kind of right there, and it just says -D is decode, so decode data. One thing we could do, excuse me, is just echo the text out. And then pipe that over to base64 and just say -D. We get, oh, there's some more text. Nice. Whereas, if we're in here, we could just say, hey, I want to decode this text and then click decode, and we get the same result. That OUBWY F2K EQ. Same result as over here. Great. So let's go ahead and copy that. Does anyone have any questions about base64 or if I'm moving too fast? Yes, no, maybe so. Yes, I agree. That probably could be better as well, just to be interactive. Yeah. So in case anyone online didn't hear, or if you're watching this at a later date, you weren't able to hear that. Another way we could demonstrate this is just by using the PHP terminal, where you can write code kind of on the spot, and you could just say like, I want a base64 encode this text. Oops, I forgot you can't use the arrow keys. It doesn't like that. You might be right. We'll figure out in a second here if it errors out. You would be correct. I completely forgot about that. It's been so long since I've used a PHP interactive. All right, PHP-A. There we go. Interactive shell. Thank you. Look at that. Right off the bat there. We could run, I think, this little snippet. And oops. Thank you very much. I put one too many quotes. I think I can just do echo, no? There we go. So you can see the output from encoding the ASCII string test just gives me this output. We can do the same thing. I spelled exit right. We can do the same thing over here. If I just do echo test, take that over to base 64, you can see, did I give it the wrong data up here? I think I might have put a new line character at the end and that's why it did that. Let me check. Echo base 64 -d. Yeah, there's a new line character. Okay. So let me just actually, just to make sure. Are you kidding? How do I not have XXD installed? Anyways, I was trying to view that like the hex bytes so you could see that there's a new line character. But what happened here is when I did it in PHP, it just took the string as it was. Whereas when I used echo, it also included new line character, and you can see that it gave me that extra little kind of character here. That another kind of thing that's we just kind of use like as an eye test to identify when you're dealing with base 64 is if there's equal signs at the end of your text. Or the data that you're looking at. If there's like one or two, it's maximum two. If there's one or two equal signs at the end of the text, very, very high chance it's base 64. Another way you can kind of detect what kind of text it is if you go over and use our handy friend CyberChef, which is a tool provided by, I think it is the UK government for cybersecurity. I think. Yeah, GCHQ, that's what it is. You can go ahead and paste in that text right here. Selection, I forgot the equal sign, but I'll just paste it in. You can just go ahead and click magic, drag that over here. And look at that, before I've even clicked bake, it's already detected, oh, this is base 64 and this is the result. It just says, hey, the result is test. I'm not sure if you guys can see that very well up there. I'll zoom in. But it says, hey, it detected that this was test. And it's called magic. What this quote unquote recipe does is it just goes through all of the all of the kind of plugins that are available here. And it runs through them to see if it can detect what type of text or encoding is being used. Yeah. If for some reason, it wasn't able to detect that it was base 64 and we had some other language, you could click intensive mode. Although very much, I do not recommend doing that because it'll take a while and then it's going to give you literally every single module, or at least the output from running every single module on it. So as you can see, we have a bunch of what I think are maybe Chinese characters and then different languages here because it was incorrectly kind of decoding it. We can see we got test again, but then this was in another language, or at least another language format. This one is called Europa 3 2000 or 29,001. You can see that's not correct. We see all these different characters that do not represent the word test. So That's just one way of kind of identifying that you work with base 64, or just, being able to identify what kind of text you're dealing with. I do have to run here. I'll stay for like another 10 minutes. I can be late. Just because there is a couple more things I want to look at. So great. We've learned about, base 64 and just how it's commonly used with web applications in general to kind of protect data from accidentally being interpreted by your browser or by, the web server as something else other than it should be. Like, as I showed in my terminal, bash accepting, if you gave it just an and symbol, it'll say, hey, there's an error. You can't just give me this and not tell me anything else. It's the same thing with the web server. Sometimes the application logic, it'll be like, hey, why did you give me this character? I was expecting it to do something. So we use base 64 encoding to protect that data so it's not kind of malformed or it doesn't get mixed up anyway. Let's go. There's two more attacks that I wanted to talk about tonight, and they are called cross-site scripting and SQL injection. They're pretty much the only two others you'll see outside of what we've covered in our sessions so far in terms of beginner CTFs. It might sound kind of familiar if you've heard of SQL injection. It's also abbreviated as SQL or SQLI. For anyone who doesn't know, SQL stands for Structured Query Language, and it's what's used with a lot of databases in web applications and just in general. You kind of interface with them to perform queries to look up data, modify it, etc. And it's pretty much used with almost all web applications that have some sort of database attached to them. There's other variations called like NoSQL and there's a couple other branches of like SQL. I think there's one called like Microsoft has their own called like KQL, which is like yes, MS SQL, which is Microsoft's version of SQL, which personally I don't touch with a 6-foot pole. But if you ever encounter it, good luck, have your fun. I don't know, do a lot of research. You'll be looking at documentation all day. There's other ones like OQL, which I think stands for Object Query Language. Yes, Postgres. So that's actually, I'll show some examples here of what I mean by, databases. So we have, for example, I can't even spell it, but PostgreSQL is one of the most popular and widely used SQL, so structured query language databases. All the databases I'm about to show you are called DBMSs, so database management systems. And a database, it's kind of in the name. If you're in CS 2413, I think that's what today's lecture was about. Just DB database management, I think. Might have been. I don't know. Was it? I wasn't there.
I actually wasn't.
There was no class?
No, I wasn't there.
Oh, okay. Were you there today? For database security? Were you there? I wasn't there either. It's all good. So the three people that are in that class today weren't there. It's all right. Okay, my computer's about to die over there. That's fine. It can die. Anyways, so databases are just, it's in the name. It's a kind of system that we use to manage or keep track and record information. Maybe we need to, if we run a website and we have users, we want them to be able to log in. So to keep a record of that, we use a database. We hold, your credentials, your username and your password in there so that you can sign in. It's how we record that you're actually a user on this site. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to sign in or have certain functionality. So one thing we're going to quickly look at is just kind of how SQL works. So if we go over to the images tab here, hopefully this will show up good for SQL query. Let's see. This is a good example. So ignore this table down here. We'll get into what that's called in a second. But we see here we have some sort of SQL statement the statement gets sent to the database and then it returns a response. We can see, okay, this is saying select region name from regions. And then that's sent to the server and it returns a response. Okay, that's great that it's showing us this, but what does any of that mean? So SQL provides these sort of, they're called queries. When you want to look up information or modify it, or just kind of access information in some type of way, delete it, update it, modify it, or insert it, or even just read it. It gives us a ton of different kind of options here. We have the option to read data, so to fetch things. If we're trying to say like, hey, return all the data from this specific instance in the database, we could say select. And then we have what are called tables. So within your database, it would make sense if you wanted to know, you wanted to store like things like username and passwords, but then you also wanted to store things like the user's kind of comments. Like if you got a blog or something, it wouldn't make sense. Why would you store your comments in the same place, or the comments that user makes on the website in the same exact spot as their password and username? Doesn't make sense. So we split these into groups which are called tables. And these tables are specific to, sort of data that you want to kind of house or represent. So you could have one table for, user credentials, and then another for, the comments that user makes on a site. Another example could be, you could have a table for when they last kind of logged in, and then maybe you want like security information. So like, okay, they logged in from this place at this time, or just, sort of logging. You want to have like some sort of log for your application. You want it stored in a database. So that, maybe later on you can process it or like query it for information to see, hey, did someone try and break into my website? So with SQL, we have queries, and they're kind of structured like this, where it says select region name. So select some sort of value called region name from the table regions. And you can see in this case, there's this database called the Regional Database Manager. And the reason I say it's called that is just because I'm guessing, and it starts with an R in front of the word Database Management System. You can see the response here that's returned are all the names of the different regions that exist in the world, or at least there's a couple there, different regions that exist in the world from that database. We can see there's Europe, there's the Americas, there's Asia, there's the Middle East and Africa, also commonly abbreviated as MEA. So does that kind of make sense to everyone, how that works, sort of? Anyone confused, have questions? Right. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick look at what a SQL injection is then. So if you think about it, when you sign into a website, right, there must be some sort of authentication or connection back to the database that happens where it's like, hey, given this user input, let me check against the database if these credentials that we gave it actually exist so we can log you in. So, maybe we could exploit that. What if we could write or kind of inject our own query into, the information that's sent, into divulging, information we shouldn't have access to? Like maybe we could dump the entire table of users or valid users and valid passwords. I spelled example wrong. We will ignore that. So right here, great example. Sometimes, oops, bad Google Lens. Do not do this. There. So I'm not sure if everyone can see that, but over here, this image I have highlighted, we have, the attacker. There's some sort of request being made again in the browser where it's like, hey, fetch me this teacher that has the ID 117. But in this case, we inject our own query after, and we say, hey, we want the application to query the database and return all kind of information where the teacher's ID is equal to 117 or 1 equals 1 semicolon dash dash. And we look at that and we're like, What the hell does that mean? That's gibberish right there. So let's take a quick look at SQL kind of queries so we can understand what happens and maybe a bit more about SQL injection. The idea is that you're able to perform your own SQL queries outside of the stuff that's defined within the application. So we see, this is pretty self-explanatory. We have a select star from customers. So select everything from the table customers. You can see over here on this kind of reference manual for SQL on W3 schools, we have a couple different operators. We see there's a where clause, an and, an or, and a not. Like, okay, if you've taken, some CS classes or programming, if you have some programming experience, this might sound familiar. I'm familiar with the and the or operators. That sounds familiar. Same thing with not. Like, if something is not equal to this, or if something is equal to this, or if these two conditions are true, you'd say and. Or, if you wanted only one of them to be true, you'd use an or. So already we're like, okay, maybe this is making a little sense. Let's look at this. We have, your and syntax, your or syntax, and your not syntax. So we could say, for example, hey, select from, these two columns were exactly, or sorry, these two kind of values from this table where these conditions are equal. So you could have this and this and this. So you want to look where all three of those conditions are true. You could use an or syntax. You could say, hey, I want you to select values from this table where at least one of these conditions is true. The alternative to both of those is you could say, hey, you know what? I want all the results from this database this table where the results are not this. Does that kind of make sense to everyone? Or is it kind of starting to maybe make sense? Yes, no? All right. So we'll move on. Just to kind of the example again of SQL injection. We'll look at this and we go, hey, what's going on here really? So if we think maybe there's some sort of code that looks like this. This is just going to be pseudocode, but maybe there's some sort of PHP query or a PHP function where it's like, hey, given some sort of post request, your post data, we'll just say username is equal to post, and then some parameter username. So we know that this kind of is like when you make a web request, this would be like in a post request. This would be if you set the value username and then gave it a value. This is what this username variable up here would be equal to. Same thing as, oh dear, please, no. Same thing as if we go over here and we did password. We said the same thing. If we did, underscore post password, we'd say, okay, great. We've just grabbed, the two user inputs that were supplied when we clicked like login or something like that. And now we want to check, are those valid in the database? We could say, hey, we want to do a select. This is just paraphrasing. This isn't exactly how you would do it in PHP. So don't go off of, trying to write code like this. But this is just an example. You could say, hey, actually, I have to think about how you do this. You could do this either on the service. This will just be a poor example, but it'll work. You could say, hey, select username, password from, credentials, where, I think it would be then username is equal to username, password is equal to password, which is the two variables that we kind of defined up there. we could say, okay, I want you to select username and password from credentials where these two values match. And then you can go, if there's, the response is returned and it was, the length of it. So the length, this is just paraphrasing again, of the response. Actually, this is what we'll do. We'll call this. Response. If the length of response is greater than 0, you could say, awesome, it found your credentials and they were valid, log in. Whereas if they weren't valid and the response, it didn't find anything or you got the password incorrect, actually, no, what I should do is this. I think that's how that would work. Actually, you know what? Okay, for the sake of this, we'll say that this response variable, this is being returned if, these two things are equal. Actually, no, the length should be 2 because there should be 2 things returned. Else, if, it isn't 2, we want to say, hey, failed type of thing. This is very poor code, so this is just an example. This is kind of like how the logic would work for if you were trying to like sign into a website. You have your response. Once it's checked the database to see if your credentials were there, it'll just go, okay, it was. Now you can log in. Otherwise, it failed, and it'll just kick you back and say, hey, invalid password, invalid username. That's kind of how it works. So you might kind of start to see where we could exploit this, and it would be up here with these two parameters that are user input, and it's supplied by us. We could say, hey, what if we put our own kind of query in there to extract information and it was returned into the page, or like the response was shown on the page? What if, we said username is equal to, or 1 equals 1 dash dash. So a quick note about the dash dash is it's like the equivalent of commenting things out in SQL. It's like if you were in Python and you wanted to comment something out, you just put a hashtag first, or like the octothorpe was, I think, the other name for it, maybe. This would be a comment. You can kind of see right there. The pound sign, yeah. I guess that's what also it is. The pound sign or a hashtag or octothorpe, whatever you want to call it. I think, in music, no, that's it's represented as a sharp, yes. Oh, that took me a second. Oh, okay. Anyways, it's represented as a sharp. That's just another way you could remember it. So, we can see, okay, great. That dash, that just means it's like a comment. So the rest of the code here would be ignored. I forgot to put this in quotes for this to make sense, but that's all right. There we go. So let's just imagine that this response here is in quotes. We could say, hey, the user input I want to supply is a quote right here. And then I put another one to start a new kind of like a new statement. And you put your own code here. You could say where username is equal to blank, and then or 1 equals 1 and comment out the rest. What this kind of does is just returns all the information I think that's in that table you're querying. I could be wrong. Yeah. Yeah. So actually, that's a great example. Thank you for reminding me of that, because that's another way we can sometimes use it to, like, in this case, bypass login pages and log in as like an administrator or something like that. Is it would take the first record that's in there, as Steven said, and log in. In some cases, it'll return everything that's in that database. Other times, it'll just go, hey, you know, use the first record, and then it'll log in. There's a couple labs we can use to practice on this. Pico CTF has some. I know Swigger, which if anyone knows what that is, it's like the company that runs Burp Suite. Swigger. This is the first kind of resource I'm going to drop here. Swigger Academy. Arguably the best place you can go for training with when it comes to web security. It's free. It's very in depth. You have everything from beginner labs to like expert, where you actually have to do some like it's called web application firewall bypassing and encoding, your payloads and stuff like that to attack the web application and effectively exploit the vulnerability that exists. You can also through the training there, you can train, and then there's a certification you can take that I think is like $99, and it's a great way to get your foot in the door. Into the information security industry, because it's like next to free compared to a lot of the other certifications that exist in terms of price. $99, that might seem like a lot, like it's $100, but it's probably one of the best certifications you can get if you're just starting out. It really shows that you're committed to, I guess, your craft, and that you know what you're doing when it comes to web security. Yeah. So the labs over here, it's free to create an account. Sometimes you don't even need one, I think, for the first couple labs. But you can just go over here and you can see, oh, look, right off the bat, SQL injection labs. Look at that. I didn't even have to click on anything. It's just there. They offer, I think there's literally something like almost 1,000 different labs. You can go over to their learning path, and that'll start you out in like the basics of web security. So you can see, oh, look at that right there. First topic, SQL injection. How are you? That's exactly what we just went over. So it says SQL injection, old but gold vulnerability, and it's responsible for many high-profile data breaches, which is true. I can't even count on my hands the number of times you'll see in the news. It's like, oh, we were compromised due to a sophisticated attacker. It's no, you had poor application security because you didn't pay your developers well enough, or you outsourced your work and just got things done cheaply and not properly. They have other labs here as well, authentication. So you could bypass login pages, or maybe you edit your sessions so you become an admin on whatever web application it is. And we have things like directory traversal, which kind of ties into the LFI stuff we've done. Command injection, hey, that's a familiar topic. We did that the last time we were here. Business logic, which is just exploiting the logic of an application for the way it's designed. Information disclosure, you might be able to leak sensitive information out of a website where it's like infrastructure. Access control, maybe you're able to break kind of like access control policies that have been set on the website, and it's like, hey, your role as a student, but then all of a sudden you're able to access stuff that the principal has access to on like D2L type of thing. It's like, hey, I shouldn't be able to view the attendance list for how many people have missed classes this year, but oh well, I am. File uploads, you're able to put your own kind of files on the web server. SSRF, also known as server-side request forgery, which is where you trick the web server into actually talking to some sort of outside source, whereas the traditional model is you're talking to it and then it responds back to you only. When you're communicating with it, you trick it and you'd be like, hey, I want you to go off and talk to this resource, or maybe you can tell it like, hey, there's some sort of internal service that I don't have access to because it's behind some sort of firewall or networking infrastructure. It's private. I want you to talk to that and give me the response, which is very common. You use it if you're, it's called, I guess, pivoting, or trying to proxy through that web server and access something you're not supposed to be able to have access to. XXC injection stands for XML entity injection. Thank you. There we go. External XML entity injection. There we go. Yeah, it's I can never remember the acronym. I just know what it is. But as you can see here, they have a plethora of labs. Great other places to learn. Hack the Box, I think, has some tutorials on it, but I wouldn't recommend it. The other place would be Try Hack Me or Pico CTF, just doing the challenges and then like Googling like how the hell do I exploit this. As you can see here, they have some more client side. It's broken up into server side, client side, and then advanced topics. Oh, and then this is what I was talking about, the BSCP. That's the exam that they have, and it gives you certification, $99. It's like, I think it takes something like 5 hours to write the exam, and then you're good. But it shows that, hey, you're a certified web ninja. You can break into websites. Oh, I actually took us to 7:30, but damn. Yeah, I do. I'll be fine. I got 2 feet. I can move. I'll be fine. Anyways, Port Swigger, also known as Burps, like a company that makes Burp Sweep. You go ahead and launch it. I'm walking to my house and meeting my roommates. I'm changing first, but it's all good. That's all good talking about it. But if you want to learn more about web security, Port Swigger, place to go. That and YouTube. Watch as many videos as you can. Just Google stuff. We didn't quite get to talk about cross-site scripting, but all it really is like, a lot of websites run off or they use JavaScript, and it's just being able to run code on your browser that, you shouldn't normally be able to, like, because some sort of vulnerability exists. You're able to run your own code on, the web page. It's not necessarily like overly useful, but it can be in like certain attacks. We'll get into that another time. Thank you all for coming, and I don't know. Have a good weekend here. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I think we'll be participating in the CTFs tonight, or maybe this weekend. I don't know. I'll take a look tomorrow.